All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. My name is Lasana Tunica L, and I serve as Senior Deputy Director at Educators for Excellence New York. And welcome. So excited to engage in this conversation with you. NYC solves. Is the mathing? So during the course of the agenda of our webinar, we'll seek to get some answers for that most poignant question. We have educators who will be presenting, as well as curriculum providers and professional learning providers, to get some answers for educators around NYC Solves to inform them around the three curriculum, as well as to elevate some of the concerns that have been raised, share experiences, and yeah, let's get moving. So the question is, what does E for E New York have to do with that? And I will turn it over to our illustrious leader, Maria Elise, to answer that question.
Very kind introduction, Lasana. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for being here tonight. As Lasana said, I have the pleasure of serving as the executive director of the New York chapter of Educators for Excellence. I've been in this role almost 2 years, and I want to lift our mission and our why, and that is to ensure that teachers have the leading voice in the policies that impact their students and the profession. And in this case tonight, they were the leading voice calling for what we now know as NYC Solves. And I'm going to preach to the choir a little bit, but I'm going to first start defining what we were calling for. Teachers were calling for the support that they needed, the professional development to accompany high quality materials so that they could meet their students where their students are and really continue to thrive and shine in their profession. And we know what NYC Solves is today. High schools across the city are in the process of adopting the illustrative math. And by the end of the school year, the majority of Algebra 1 students are expected to use the curriculum. And for middle schools, local districts are choosing from the pre-approved three curriculums that will be represented here tonight: illustrative math, Amplify, and iReady. And this school year, as you all know, 8 out of 32 geographic school districts are participating in the initiative, and that is poised to grow. And so we want that as the implementation of NYC Solves continues and as the growth continues, that teachers are leading the implementation with their feedback, and that the decisions that are made in terms of which curriculum and in terms of how to continue to strengthen NYC Solves are truly based on those that are leading the effort in the front of our students and with our students and in our schools and our classrooms. And the last thing I'll say is that we all know that the recent release of the NAEP scores confirm what educators have been saying, and that is that our students in the most marginalized communities continue to be left behind, and that we know that succeeding in math opens all doors for college and career and beyond. And so we are here because we are student-centered, because we are teacher-led, and because your voices and your experiences need to continue to shape how we do with NYC Solves, how we implement, and how we grow the effort. We have leveraged the momentum from literacy reform efforts in the city to push for changes in math education, and we are proud of that, but we know that your voice is needed to continue to shape the present and the future of NYC Solves. So I want to thank every single one of you. I know that we have partners across the board, and we will recognize them next. And I want to thank the team and Lasana for creating this space today, curated by and for teachers. And so thank you all.
Indeed. Thank you, Maria Elise. As we move on, yeah, let's do a quick shout out to our partners. As you see, some of them are populated here. And yes, so let's keep moving. So our agenda for this evening is as follows. First, we'll do our curriculum providers will give us overview of their particular curriculum. Then we'll transition to educators who are taught in the curriculum, and then forward to a Q&A for our PL providers, and educators as well. And after that, we'll open up into breakout rooms where educators will be able to self-select into rooms with the providers and educators who are experienced in teaching those curriculum to ask any questions that they may have for them. And then we'll follow up with our next steps. So I won't go into a round of introductions, but I pass this over now to Elisa.
I'm holding many hats tonight, but the main hat I do wear with this organization is I'm the lead organizer at E-Free New York. I've been in this work for a few years now, and I'll be leading our temp check today. So to get us started with this conversation, I'm going to launch a brief poll where you can select which curriculum you're currently using. And if it's other, drop the name of the curriculum in the chat. One moment. Okay. I see we got some responses coming in already. The chart is flying. And I'll give us about 15 more seconds as people are flowing in and getting settled. I voted for the Jeopardy music being played right now. The team wasn't for it, but imagine your favorite music being played right now. And welcome in if you just joined. We're doing a brief poll on what math curriculum you're currently using. Okay, we see Bridges and Vision. Okay. We got people doing many things at different schools. And we're at a minute, so I'm going to end it so we can see the results now. Can everyone see them? Are we noticing any trends? Drop them in the chat. Okay, I'm going to hand it off to the next facilitator.
Thank you, Elisa. Good evening, everyone. My name is Chandrise Tucker. Please call me Sean.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Sorry. Oh, that's Valerie coming in. Hey, Valerie. I hear you coming in. Thank you all for being here with us. So I'm the senior organizer with E4E New York, and I am here for you to continue engaging in the chat. And my question for you all, we're all curious to know, what are your top challenges with your current curriculum? And I'll add this into, oh, it's not going to let me do it. Waiting room participant is not in this meeting. Okay. Someone's going to have to add it to the chat for me. But would love for you all to share with us your top challenges with your curriculum. Thank you, Sada, for adding that to the chat. I know it's going to take a little time to probably think about it. And if you're just coming in, as you can see, the chat prompt is, what are your top challenges with your curriculum? If you can add that to the chat box. But if you're the type that like to voice it over, you also can come off mute and voice it over if that is allowed. Regents alignment. Thank you, Tahira. Thank you, Lee Pacing, for different levels of ability, making it more challenging while still supporting my students who need more time. Not having the time to get teachers trained and comfortable with utilizing the resources. Yeah. Thank you, Anita, for that. The time again, there it is again, no time allotted to developing and reviewing the prerequisite skills. time. Again, thank you, Wendy. Adding on teachers, we support need more time. Yeah, it's all about the timing and the pacing and the differentiation, not having the time. Well, as you all are thinking about that and thinking about more challenges, you can continue to add it to the chat. And I will pass it on to the next one.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean. And thank you, everyone, for sharing. Hopefully, this conversation will give you some insight in some of the challenges that you've already identified. So here's the framework for for this particular conversation. An event that he presented to the Black male educators group who was advocating for a separate unit in financial literacy as a requirement for graduation. New York State Education Board of Regents Chancellor Lester Young voiced his perspective that public schools should be a pathway to the middle class. So it's this premise that will guide the framing of the curriculum provider's presentation after this. Quoting from this Urban Institute study, improving math scores raises earnings at age 30 for children of all races and ethnicities by roughly the same amount in most life stages. So Chancellor Young says public education should be a pathway to the middle class. The subject that has most implication on future earning potential is mathematics, according to many studies that are coming out. Now, where are we presently? As Marie-Lise mentioned earlier, our NAEP scores, you see the fourth grade math scores there, 58% Asian, 53% white, 16% black, and 16% Hispanic are proficient. Now, 50% is not bad, but that means there's 50% that are not proficient. But when you're looking at 16%, it's unacceptable. And we raise an eyebrow at anyone who's defending the status quo of math proficiency among our students. Looking at the eighth grade math, 57 Asian, 36% white, 13% black, and 10% Hispanic. So something needed to be done. And we want to ground ourselves in this conversation, in this reality of where we are and where we need to go. Next slide, please. So we're transitioning to our curriculum providers. We'll share presentations around their particular curriculum. And I ask that you introduce yourself before you go into that. And we'll start with the first one, who is Tyrone Holmes.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Ty Holmes. I want to say welcome, community. I'm going to try to share my screen here, and it looks like I'm doing that. I am the Chief Inclusion Officer for Curriculum Associates, known as the iReady Company, and I'm here today to talk to you about iReady Classroom Mathematics. And the chief thing that we hope to include all students in is the truth that every student, right, belongs in grade level mathematics, and grade level mathematics belongs to every single student. iReady Classroom Mathematics is a K through 8 program. I know that the district currently is looking at middle school through Algebra 1. And to get us started and to level set and give you a feel, if you look in the center of the screen, you're going to see the iReady Metro, they came out. The iReady assessment is what many of our schools and districts are familiar with. They use the diagnostic screener to get a sense for where their students are in a kindergarten through 12th grade spectrum. And that data creates what a lot of our educators see on the right of the screen, which is iReady's online personalized learning. What is new to a lot of our educators is that that same set of data actually impacts our iReady Classroom Mathematics core curriculum, which you see listed to the left of the screen. Now, with that core curriculum, I want you to know that our authors, our experts who inform the program, they are experts in everything from building great routines for reasoning to making sure that the math lessons are culturally and linguistically responsive, all the way to supporting English language learners and reimagining the math classroom for all students. And in that, that is why this authorship team uniquely designed iReady Classroom Mathematics to give educators and students the gift of time. So interesting that in the comments and the feedback earlier, folks were saying the one thing they were struggling with was time. Well, iReady Classroom Mathematics has a multi-day lesson structure that gives our educators and our students adequate time to actually embrace the New York City shifts. The first day of the multi-day lesson structure is called Explore, and this will address another feedback point from the beginning because in that Explore day, guess what you're exploring? You're actually exploring the most critical prerequisite to give you access as a student, a key to participate in the rich grade level instruction. The grade level instruction days are called develop days, where students are developing math muscle, conceptual understanding, procedural fluency, and application using discourse to drive instruction with low floor and high ceiling tasks. And then the last session is called the refine. And that refine session gives students an opportunity for rich application and teachers additional time for differentiation.
Excuse
This
me,
mo-
Ty, quick interruption.
yeah,
Are the slides supposed to be moving as you
they,
saying
they,
that?
they are, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So this is adequate time for rich grade level instruction, and it's all rooted in the New York City shifts. And the framework that drives the experience of the classroom is an easy to understand but powerful three-part framework, a routine, if you will, that our teachers and our students begin to understand is what a math classroom should feel like. An opportunity for students to find their entry point by trying, by making sense of the mathematics. An opportunity for students to build community and discuss their thinking with their fellow students, and a chance for the entire class to make strong conceptual connections before they actually move on to apply. So this try, discuss, connect helps students build math community with daily student discourse through one accessible teaching framework that whether you are a rookie teacher first year or a seasoned veteran teacher, right? You can embrace this framework and it up levels, it scales best practices for all our classes. And within this, you'll see in the framework that students will dive into rich tasks that embrace a wide range of culture and understanding. Our entire program has been trans adapted into Spanish, and that trans adaptation into Spanish actually made our English version better so that it supports language routines for all of our multilingual learners. Now, the question on the left of the slide that's driving this from New York City Solves is the math mathing? And our answer is yes, it is. We're proud to be a partner of large districts like the Council of Great City School Districts all across this nation of ours that are exceeding expectations. We would, as a company, we never take credit for the great results that these hardworking teachers are driving, but we are proud to partner in terms of professional learning and resources like iReady Classroom and iReady for districts that continue to outpace other districts in post-pandemic growth. Districts like Cincinnati, Portland, Jackson, Birmingham, Memphis, and the list goes on. And right here in our state of New York, we have state-focused research that shows, in fact, that students who are implementing our iReady personalized instruction with fidelity, they are seeing and demonstrating significantly higher test scores on your New York State test. This is the power of not only implementation with fidelity, great professional learning, and amazing hardworking teachers. So I know that I was raised to know that when you're brief, you'll be invited back to speak. So I want to turn it over to Lasana to take us forward. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Tyrone, can we see that slide that shows the 5 days?
Yes.
It wasn't showing as you voiced it over. I think that's important.
So can everyone see it now? Just a thumbs up if I okay. So the explore session again. The explore session is paced in time to address the most critical prerequisite. This way you don't get bogged down in everything in the universe that is unfinished. You are focused on the most critical, and it's the iReady data that actually drives that expression on that day. The develop sessions are where there's a focus on grade level instruction. Students are developing math muscle. And the refine is a real gift because teachers aren't teaching new content. This is a day of rich application, and teachers get to strategically use the time to differentiate. And of course, there's all kinds of supports within the teacher's guide and so forth to help our teachers do that.
Thank you so much. Let's transition over to Amplify.
All right. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Make sure we're good to go. Give me 1 second as I set this up. Okay. All right. Well, first of all, thank you, friends, for having me here. My name is Dr. Oscar Perales. I am a former math teacher, instructional coach, currently a specialist here with Amplify. And yeah, happy to share with you a little bit about Amplify Desmos Math New York, a core comprehensive curriculum that's meant to really enhance the teaching and learning process. And so when we think about rich, engaging content, how do we build knowledge and critical thinking skills for our students? It's really one of our core tenets in our program. This idea that we want math that's going to be motivating for students. And so one of the ways that we love to motivate students in our program is the ability to be able to develop a math identity through story. So one of the things that's really unique to your program is that at a K-5 level, you've got this unit story, this fictional story that comes in. Teachers can read it aloud to the students, a chance for them to start making connections even before the math is layered in. Here's an example here of Benita, where she's her story of a class pet. And so we actually, teachers are reading this out loud to students, a chance for them to start making some connections with the story, with that literacy, even before we jump into the actual math. But then even more importantly, we actually see that story explicitly called out throughout different parts in our lessons, as you see here. And so whenever students are reintroduced to the story of Benita, they're already grounded in previous experiences, like we see in this situation here. We see it in these delightful digital activities and tools where we can really leverage the power of our Desmos classroom technology, where in this case, they're set up with a situation where can you help the millipede get across to get that leaf there? And as the students are working with the math, they're working with the technology, we're leveraging the technology in a way that's really thinking with students, not for students. And so they're getting that responsive feedback as they're working through it. But then we really start layering in the math as we start progressing. We start getting to more that grade level understanding here. You can even see a little bit of that early algebraic thinking that we'll see later on in those grades in middle school and in high school. But not only do you see this in the digital component, but then there's also this powerful print and hands-on learning, because we truly want to have flexibility for teachers and for students to be able to learn on and off of their devices. So not only do you have this rich, engaging content, but then when we think about integrating these numeracy skills in our classroom, how do we connect it? How do we start prepping our students to have these 21st century skills of collaboration, communication, critical thinking, things of that nature? And the idea is that we want to build that procedural fluency by first developing that conceptual understanding. And so one of the ways that we'd love to do is that in our program, we really want to invite student thinking here. And so they're leveraging the technology. In this case, they're working with factors and multiples. They don't necessarily understand. And in this setting right here, they're looking at multiples of 8. What are some multiples there? They're leveraging that technology, that Desmos magic, if you will, right? They're going to get that little hamster that says, yes, you got a correct multiple versus one that they didn't. But then even more, as we start inviting student thinking, we create these collaborative opportunities for them to be working not just with the software, but with each other. And as they start developing that student thinking, we want to provide opportunities for them to really layer in the math, really understand, right? What is the factors? Why does 4 times 5 work? Why does 5 times 4 work? How does it work in the context of building a hamster home, right? So we really want to invite and develop. But then even as we start to crystallize student thinking, we want to provide teachers with that support in the moment, right? So you'll see these differentiation tables which will provide that assistance for teachers, right? Maybe you have a student that is just skip counting. How do I provide support for the students? We call that out. Or even for students that are already understanding how to do factors, how to do multiples, how can I challenge them a little bit more to continue to grow? But not only do you see these numeracy skills that we build throughout our lessons, but then we even have a lot of different components like our centers, where it's an opportunity to have these learner-to-learner collaboration in a game-based setting where they're reinforcing a specific skill. And you can even see how those stages are building throughout the different grade levels. But then we also even have this learner to software interaction where students can leverage the fluency by heart and give them a chance for them to practice these virtual cards, right? But they have looking at the math in multiple different ways, multiple interactions with it. And for us as teachers to be able to really track and to see, have my students gotten to that proficiency that I want them to get to at the end of whatever lesson may be. And this idea, right, that at the end of the day, we really want to provide access for all of our students, regardless of where they're at, right? As we talked about earlier, there's that flexibility of learning with paper, with digital. So we have all of those components already built into our program. But this idea that we want to start with low floor, high ceiling tasks, right, which is one of the initiatives on New York Solves. This idea that we want to invite everybody, regardless of your background, regardless of your knowledge here. We want you to see, and you're literally comparing apples to oranges in a safe learning environment. So we start with these low floor, high ceiling tasks, but then we want to provide structure for teachers, right? How do I provide more access? How do I accommodate those students that perhaps need a little bit more support? We'll call those outs in the moments in our teacher edition. And then this idea that our design of our lessons are built with the Universal Design for Learning guidelines, right? This idea that we want to provide as many opportunities to capture student thinking, right? Many times that math is too narrow. How can we provide more access? As we see here in this 6th grade examples, students can type in a sketch there. They can draw it in there. They can type in there in a text box as well. Perhaps they want to draw it out first and upload an image. We want to provide that. Or even for students that perhaps want to share their thinking orally, they can upload audio as well. So really trying to capture as much thinking as we can. And then when we think about this kind of access, right? This access is also for all learners, but specifically for our multilingual learners in our program. Multiple ways that we do that. We call out in the goals, right? Where are we focusing on listening, on speaking, reading, and writing, right? We call those out in the moment as teachers are introducing the vocabulary, right? We don't want to front load the vocabulary. We want to build an organic need for that academic language. And we call it out even in our key takeaways here, what to say in the moment within the lesson. And then even have this ability to have these instructional routines embedded in our program where we want to provide structure for mathematical discourse. Yes, we want them to talk math, but we want them to do it in a productive manner. And then also the ability to have the program and the flexibility for students to be able to toggle between Spanish and English is a very important concept and a part of our program as well. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Ozana. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's do the math. Mathematics.
All right, thank you so much.
Please introduce yourself. Mhm.
Thank you, thank you. I'm sorry about that short delay there. All right, I'm Dr. Latoya Bird. I'm the Senior Vice President of Client and Partner Success for Illustrative Mathematics. And so first and foremost, IM Math is developed so students can love and learn math for life. And so about 40% of the folks who were in attendance today were utilizing illustrative math. So we definitely want to know that teacher feedback is important to us. We always looking for ways, and we're always interested in how IM Math can work better in the classroom. And so IM Math encourages students to, draw from current understanding of math, their lived experiences, and we have an example there on the screen, as well as just the world around them to solve problems. By starting with what students already know, teachers create those pathways, for all students to engage, just like our other providers said, with that grade level content, providing that, develop the conceptual understanding as well as the procedural fluency. And we don't see a trade-off between the two. We know that they're really equally important, that conceptual as well as the procedural learning, because they're crucial skills that allow students to have a more fuller, a more comprehensive understanding of mathematics. IM Math is research-based, standards aligned, as well as built on the principle that all students can learn grade level mathematics. So IM Math's focuses on that deep conceptual understanding, like I spoke about in the other slide, as well as the reasoning. The collaborative problem solving is absolutely necessary, and that's what we're showing there on the screen, sort of, what does my day look like within the classroom? Because we know that it's necessary in a world that, demands a greater understanding of math than ever before. So those strong math skills are really indispensable to solving problems, making those, smart decisions, and just truly thriving in a world where technology and data really drive our everyday life. So with science, technology, engineering, and math, those careers, those STEM careers, making up a larger portion of the US workforce, every year. So with the advances in AI, with the computer science, pretty much reinventing our workspace, our young people today are entering a world where the high-paying careers really require us to have the advanced mathematical reasoning as well as those problem-solving skills. And so within our curriculum, there's a consistent problem-based lesson structure that really ensures the coherence within and across all grade levels. We emphasize the collaboration through thoughtfully selected instructional routines that promote that interaction. We want to invite students to every single lesson within the classroom. IM Math also specializes that guidance and support for our teachers, to support our teachers with facilitating the learning within the classroom, especially for our multilingual learners and students with disabilities, along with the math language routines, which aids in that language development and increase access for multilingual language learners. And so that question, the left side of the screen, is the math mathing? Yes, we believe the math is mathing. There's a rigorous study of IM's impact is underway right now, but the trends are clear. IM is playing a critical role in helping districts close the gaps by disruptions that occurred during the pandemic. And so of the IM districts that experienced greater learning loss in 2019 through 2022 compared to the state average, more than 72% still managed to meet or exceed the national average change in score during 2022 to 2023. These findings are supported by data from the Stanford Education Data Archive, a nationally recognized initiative aimed at improving educational opportunity. The results reinforce that IM is not only a rigorous and coherent curriculum, but also one that drives measurable student achievement in mathematics. Again, aligning with that question, is the math mathing? With more than 476 districts analyzed, IM success is not confined to a specific school or region. It shows broad efficacy in improving student performance on a national scale. IM is also effective in supporting the historically underserved student populations we talked about earlier. So a December 2023 study found that special education and free and reduced lunch program students using Imagine Learning illustrative math significantly outperformed their peers following traditional curricula on the MAP mathematics assessment from spring 2022 to spring 2023. We've also seen great success in Los Angeles, the second largest school district in the US. Since LAUSD began implementing IM Math in 2022, students in every subgroup in LAUSD have shown improvement. Students with disabilities improved 1.2 percentage points. Sorry, complete freeze. Yep, you can still see me. And then English language learners are now performing, are both performing above the pre-pandemic levels at the statewide average for 2023 to 2024, as well as our Black students have notably exceeded the pre-pandemic performance. Students in foster care outperform state averages as well, again, highlighting IM's role in addressing systemic inequalities. So I'll repeat what I said from the beginning, that IM Math is truly developed so students can love and learn math for life. We're really encouraged by this data, the data that we're seeing across the board, and we really do look forward to continuing our work, especially our work right here in NYC, to foster student success from classroom to their careers. And I'll turn it over. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for those concise overviews. I know it's challenging within the time that you had, but everyone did an excellent job. So let's transition now to educator experiences with the curriculum. We had a last minute where our iReady teacher was not able to make it. So I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Sada to voice over some of our initial findings from the focus groups and surveys that we've been collecting around NYC Solves.
Hi, y'all. My name is Sada. I'm an organizer with E4E. And before I was an organizer with E4E, I was a public school teacher in District 5. I worked with students with disabilities, so across contents. And I remember as a new teacher, I sat my principal down and I was like, you're not putting me in a math and science classroom. I cannot help students there. And so this work is really special to me because I want teachers to feel prepared to teach students in the contents that they're expected to. I don't want new teachers to have to go through that. And so part of what I do at eFree now is going through survey data to really hear what teachers are experiencing and try to make sense of how citywide they can be better supported. And so I went through some of the iReady responses we got, and some of the bright spots I'd love to highlight is that teachers found the curriculum to be culturally relevant. So no negative responses to the cultural relevance of the curriculum, with over 57% of educators responding that iReady curriculum was very positive or somewhat positive when it came to cultural relevance and engaging students. And that's just such a big win. And on the next slide, what I noticed was that looking at the overall sample pool of educators that we surveyed, about 45% of educators were saying that they were confident, so ranking 3 or higher on the confidence scale using their district-chosen HQIM to students with disabilities. And when I looked into the iReady pool, that number was slightly higher at 57%. Just to give context, there's plenty that adds up to teachers being confident in the room. I'm sure you all know it. This could be also years of experience at play, but yeah, this is just something to look into, and that was a bright spot when I was looking into the data. And then for the challenges, interestingly enough, it was pretty split across some of the options we give. So about, I think it was 13% or 16% across sequencing, pacing lessons, structuring one-on-one time, and integrating AI or technology. But slightly larger of a challenge was differentiating for different student populations. So back to going to our students with IEPs and how we are supporting them, as well as other diverse learning needs. And so that's our survey highlights. It's really important that educators take our survey so we hear your voice and how you're doing. So I'm just going to drop that survey link. If you're a teacher and haven't already, make sure your voice is heard in our data. And I will pass it on to the next.
Thank
Hi.
you.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Lauren DeVita. I teach at College Point Collaborative, which is a middle school in College Point. I teach Algebra 1. And we've been using Amplify Desmos for the year. I actually was also part of the original Amplify initiative. So Amplify Desmos has actually come with a few improvements, which has been really awesome. Amplify's bright spot is student engagement through multimedia resources. So by design, Amplify is an online curriculum that uses interactive digital tasks, which you saw in the presentation. So during the lesson, the students get multiple entry points that help them explore, which personally as a teacher, like I've been teaching about 20 years, and my first 10 years was all explicit instruction. So that shift in the classroom to exploratory to student-led classrooms has been tough. But Amplify has really helped students be able to take ownership of that learning because I'm able to take the step back while students explore. Like one of my favorite features is that when students type in an answer, they get an animation that either shows why their answer is correct or why their answer is not correct. So if they get the right answer, it might show it on a graph, like why their point's on the line, or it might substitute something in and show why their answer is right. But if it's wrong, they can watch what happens and then try again. We just did exponential equations. They got to watch the bacteria colonies grow. You know, they got to watch all those things without me jumping in to tell them what was happening or me jumping in to say, well, what do you see there? And even in that, you see them questioning each other. Because if theirs keeps coming up with a wrong answer, then they're asking their partner, how are they getting the right answer? So it's really helped me take that step back that we've been trying to do to be a facilitator rather than the direct instruction. Um, and part of doing that is also that teacher dashboard is super awesome. Like you can see what students are doing in real time. So you can monitor their answers while also not being right over their shoulder. So you get like a one page not printout, but it's on your screen of what if students are getting the right answers, what they're putting in. Like he showed, you can capture that student thinking, but that also helps me pick my small groups because if 25 kids got it right and 5 kids didn't, that's my small group. So that also helps facilitate that independent work from students. Again, in my experience, when students get a piece of paper with a lot of text, they're very overwhelmed. Amplify is broken into that low floor, high ceiling task, but it's separated into slides so students can pace themselves. But you can also pull students to slides that you want them to focus on, and you can move them along because that sense of urgency and that pacing needs to be there. So you can choose what slides you want them to be on while also giving them the space to move on when they're ready. As far as engagement goes, again, that variety that you saw in the presentation has been vital. You know, it comes with turn and talks, discussion questions, partner work, card sorts, notice and wonders. All those routines are built in. So it's not just a students coming in, getting their book, doing page 1. Then they get their book and do page 2. They're getting a variety of resources, which has been really, really good for engagement because students are excited to see what they're going to have that day. The other day, they got paired with another person in the room and they played a game against each other, an educational game, as a warm up. And as a reward, the last 2 minutes, they wanted to do that again. You know, that was really exciting. As far as challenges go for Amplify, you saw that they do provide a lot of resources for diverse learners. So they do have those supports built in for the Ls and for the SWDs, and they can toggle between English and Spanish. And there is supports listed in every lesson, but most of the supports are questions, which is good because questioning is something that a lot of teachers struggle with. So those questions really help you elicit answers from your students. Again, not giving answers, you know, getting students to explore, getting students to do it. But the struggle has been that Amplify provides mini lessons for when you pull your small group, but there aren't many lessons for every topic, and there aren't many lessons for every lesson. So a lot of times you have to supplement what you're doing with your group, whether it's because they're Ls or SWDs or just struggling learners who have learning gaps from COVID, from a previous school they came from. So that's been the main struggle. I've been told that there's more mini lessons being added for the 2025 to 2026 school year. So I'm looking forward to that. And as far as extra supports, my favorite one is that when you type an answer in, students can see what other students put in. So your who are struggling with vocabulary get to read what another student put in after theirs. So I've seen kids be like, I didn't know that word, but I saw my friend put that word. I can use that in my next answer. So that's been a really great support too. Um, in conclusion, no curriculum's perfect, but I love that Amplify has been in classrooms and they've been taking feedback and they've really been making teachers stakeholders. And it's been really cool to see suggestions that we've been making actually take place. And I look forward to seeing what the future brings. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Illustrator Matt.
Hi, I'm Katie Carson. I teach at Energy Tech High School. I teach Algebra 1. I've been teaching math for 7 years now, and when I graduated college, I started with IM. So this is my 7th year with IM. I started with their 8th grade curriculum and then switched over to 7th, then Algebra 2, and now I'm at Algebra 1. So I feel like I have a interesting range. But my favorite parts about IM is the connection to the real world and the challenging problems that it has. It's really like nothing I've ever seen before is like the connection even to just polynomials and things that I didn't even know could be connected to the real world. There are word problems for everything, and my students find that if they're able to connect to it, there's more engagement and they're more interested and they feel like they're their own stakeholders in the curriculum. Um, with that, the vertical alignment throughout IM's curriculum is really easy to help with intervention. When I was doing intervention classes in 8th grade, pulling from 6th grade and 7th grade curriculum was very easy. And now with the Algebra 1, they have the supports already there for you from 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade lessons. And then with acceleration, same thing, pushing to geometry or algebra 2, or even just the are you ready for more suggestions in the lessons. I feel like my students are never not challenged, which I feel like could be a thing happening across the city right now, is maybe students aren't feeling like they are being challenged sometimes. Um, but I would say the brightest spot of IM is the learning environment that it creates. I think that's one of the reasons why you see really great map growth is their transition to not not liking math anymore. I feel like when they're in an IM classroom, because of the way a lesson is set up, where in the warm up you have 5 minutes to just get your thinking out, and nobody's going to tell you you're wrong, and you can just think and share that thinking, has changed a lot of students' mindsets. And I've had many students tell me that they've never liked math before this year. And it's because of the environment that's created with this like problem solving. It's really on you, like, let's kind of do this together, but you are in charge of your own learning here. I think it has an incredible impact on students. And that kind of learning for a student, like learning that they can enjoy something that they used to not like, I think sometimes is more important than the other things going on, but that's a whole other thing. Um, with that is the challenge because if they've never experienced an IM lesson or a classroom before, I'm sure the student has had someone holding their hand through every single lesson, telling them how to get an answer. And now, when they step into this kind of classroom, we're letting go, and they need to be a problem solver and they need to start thinking on their own. And it's not easy for students to switch that mindset. But I think that is one of the most important skills that they can learn is how to think and using like the instructional routines train students how to take on a problem and think for themselves and think in a group. With that, switching from a teacher role to now a facilitator role, I think is one of the biggest challenges for teachers because we all went to college for teaching or learned how to teach. And now it's like, oh, you're not going to teach anymore. You're going to let them do most of the thinking. And instead of jumping into a small group and helping them and showing them how to do a problem, you're just going to pose the right question so that they can get to the idea or the solution on their own. So that way of teaching, facilitating that transition, it can be very difficult. Um, Along with that is the pacing and timing, which everybody said in the beginning. Um, the lessons, if I think if we don't understand how to do them correctly, some teachers can get hung up on sticking on a spot in a lesson that they don't actually need to, and the pacing gets all messed up. So understanding the pacing and the timing of each activity can be really challenging. Um, but I think that there's been a lot of support with PDs and learning from the curriculum and then learning from the people in the DOE that have been helping with the curriculum. That's been like smoothing those challenges out. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie. Yes. So we're starting to hear the correspondences as it relates to the modern workplace. When I can just think about my team coming together and collaborating on this project, right? So those things that were outlined in there, there is definitely a through line into life after school that's beneficial to kids. So now we'll move forward to our Q&A, and now we'll hear from our PL providers. And we'll begin with Beth from Zern. And the question that we have for Beth is what we're doing now, these 5 questions are the most trending issues or challenges that we hear in the field through our focus groups, our surveys, our one-off anecdotal conversations with educators. So we hope to elevate these particular questions and see what you have to say as it relates to in addressing these issues. Turn it over to you, Beth.
All right, thank you. I was just making sure I was sharing my screen correctly. I think you have to toggle on the top, as everybody else was saying earlier, in order to make access to mine. So I'm Beth Sappy. I work at Zern. Before Zern, I was a high school math teacher for many years and was the director of math for Baltimore City Schools, where I was able to implement high quality instructional materials. So at Zern, I support districts across the country as well as New York City with implementation. But one of the questions, the question you ask around integrating resources, so we're not diluting the core curriculum objectives, is so important. And the first thing I want to think about is it's so exciting to hear from our teachers and see that more districts and schools are adopting high quality instructional materials and more students are getting access to rigorous, coherent content during their core math block. And this is such a critical step towards advancing math learning for all of our kids. But what I'm seeing in my work and what my colleagues are seeing is that districts are still facing challenges in supporting all students' needs. And I keep hearing the word time, right? There's not enough time. And I know when I say like all those challenges are here, I know on every given day, students might miss a class, they misunderstood a problem, they have unfinished learning from prior years. And when you multiply that by 20, 25, 30 students, it's incredibly hard for even the most experienced teachers to keep every student moving forward without diluting the core curriculum objectives. So that's where Zern really comes in. We're a nonprofit, which means every aspect of our program has been designed with a single goal in mind, and that's to ensure that all kids have the support they need to succeed in rigorous grade level math. We're a tier 1 support that helps teachers differentiate their high quality grade level instruction for every student. So what we really are doing is we're just an online math program with daily interactive daily lessons designed to make sure every student has the support they need every day to be successful with the grade level content that the teachers are teaching in their core instructional class. And we know this approach works because our research shows that students who use Learn are making significant gains in math proficiency, even students who are starting multiple grade levels below. And it resonated a lot when Dr. Bird mentioned LAUSD. LAUSD uses IM as their core instructional curriculum and uses Learn as a core complement as that digital tool in middle school. And they've just been really seeing such success with that pair together, which has been really exciting for us. When I think about all this, I think of what's the formula. So in Zern, the formula that we find is the heart of every grade level lesson is based on research that shows what works to help all students learn math. And the first thing is we need to ensure that all students are building fluency and conceptual understanding in every lesson. Without this combination, we're not going to get to numeracy. And then second, we need to help students build an understanding that sticks. So in Zern, students learn with instruction from an on-screen teacher who teaches math using pictures and objects to help the math make sense, similarly to what some of the teachers were saying about the facilitator and the students really figuring out that math themselves. And then finally, where Zern can be a transformational tool to support your core instruction is when kids fall behind. We can catch them up without sacrificing grade level rigor. So our Zern digital lessons adapt in real time to help kids work through challenges and stay on grade level. And when you bring this formula together, students are going to be better equipped to engage in their core math class and see better impact. I knew the word time was going to come up. So I put this in the PowerPoint because when I was a teacher, when I listened to my teachers and got feedback, we always hear, how do I fit all this in? So in New York City and across other districts that we support, we see a lot of implementation around teachers using the core curriculum and then using Zern instead of the paper materials. So what that can look like is when I have a class of 30 kids and they're all started working on their paper and they all start raising their hands, I can't get to all of them. And Zern sort of helps with that, right? Zern's going to be that tool that's going to help students in the moment. So if I get something wrong and I'm doing my Zern lesson, the tool is going to help them in that moment. We bring in on-ramps and scaffolds and differentiation so that students can figure that out and then continue to move forward with that grade level lesson. So pairing your high quality curriculum with a high quality digital tool that's able to support students with their on-grade content and support them in the moment of struggle, we can promise an increase in positive results and impact for all of our kids. And what's the next question? Who's moving next?
We're over to Tyrone, and the question is, how can pacing support students who are behind while maintaining grade level rigor?
So the beauty of the pacing within the iReady classroom core curriculum effectively is anchored around that multi-day lesson. And it is a multi-day lesson where each session in the multi-day lesson serves a specific purpose within the arc of instruction. The reason that's important is because if there's no strategy for grade level acceleration, unfortunately, it becomes really challenging for our educators to navigate how to address all of the unfinished learning for all of the kids that they have. So what that multi-day lesson does is it gives a specific day, an explore day, right? To actually use data to address the most critical prerequisite and keep our students with that key, that access to grade level instruction.
Thank you. Our next question is for Sarah Fuentes. What strategies ensure alignment with standards and Regents' expectations? Are you on mute?
Sorry, I had my sticky germs. So thank you for telling me I was on mute. My name is Sarah Fuentes. I'm the creator of Math Mini Lessons. And no matter what curriculum your school is using, the New York State test and the Regents are how your student achievement is ultimately going to be assessed. It's not only about the map. We know we're looking at state and Regents. So even if you go on the New York State data site, your school report card is going to show that information. So it is imperative that we align to those exams in really intentional ways. And Math Mini Lessons partners with schools in the Bronx and Manhattan to create gains and help them outperform the school districts, city, and state by using some of these techniques that I want to share with everyone today so that all people, all kids are winning in any school. So I had written this article on my LinkedIn last week because although I'm really good at driving, as soon as I came to a test, I started freaking out. And I realized that sometimes the barrier to exams isn't really the content or a skill. It can be confidence, it could be structure. There could be something that creates that uncertainty in us. Like there's a reason why for the SATs, there are specialized tutors because we know that the format of that exam is so particular. It's very different than what we normally see. So when we're thinking about high stakes exams, we have to think about the format of that exam and how it matters as well. For me, it wasn't until my driving instructor gave me that little piece of paper and showed me this is how, when they take the test, the person will check off your errors. And as long as you have less than 30 points, you will pass. Just having a model for the assessment gave me certainty, confidence. It showed me what I needed to work on, where I needed to focus, what my hotspots were, and it made me feel more confident to take the exam. And kids can be the same way. So again, no matter what curriculum you're using, you want to ensure that you have a model for the kids of what that exam is going to look like. And we know it is not a gotcha. We know exactly what the next GEM exam is going to look like. We know the structure and we know the blueprint. So what we can do is we can use that information to really support our kids. And then if you join me a little later on today in the breakout room, I'll show you how some of the work I get to do with schools is really designing those progress monitoring tools with them so that when they take the exam, they're prepared. So for example, this was a test I had made up. And when the actual state test came in, they were almost exactly the same. So it just speaks to the format and structure is really predictable. And we can take little tweaks, use this information to ensure that there is alignment on the exam. What's really unfortunate is when I go to schools and find out that 98% of the kids are passing the course, but only 15% pass the Regents. To me, that shows there's a misalignment somewhere, whether it's a rigor alignment or there's something about the way kids are being assessed in class daily or on the state exam. There's some type of gap that we're missing. And unfortunately, it looks as if our kids aren't learning, and we know they are. We know our kids are learning in classrooms. So again, having a really structured assessment structure and system can really help your schools no matter what curriculum you're using. And again, I've been pretty good at this. Like this was another page and it seemed like she must have been cheating. How can she make it look so much like the exam itself? So what I really want to do is, again, I think every school is capable of making sure that they're aligned to the state exam. I know admin wants to know that they can have a more apples to apples comparison to make predictive models so that we know which kids to really target and support. And you can only do that if you're collecting the right kind of data with your kids. So you can learn more about that later, or you can contact me using this email. I'm happy to answer all questions and help more kids.
Thank you, Sarah. Back to you, Dr. Oscar. How can the curriculum, you spoke to this somewhat, how can the curriculum be adapted to serve diverse learners more effectively?
Yeah, thank you for that. And yes, as you mentioned, we already discussed some of the supports that we have. We talked a little bit about how our lessons are designed using the UDL principles to really open up access and provide strategic support for all of our students. We also talked a little bit about how we have various language supports embedded throughout our program to provide that more access, right, for all of our students. Do want to quickly point out some of the other ways that we do try to adapt to what students are doing right in the moment. So here's an example here. Here's in sixth grade. Students are working through this challenge to try to figure out where is the sand dollar. But the beauty of it, right, is that if I can go into my teacher view, I can go into my summary screen here, right, and I'm able to capture everyone's thinking, all the work they've done in real time, right? And so when I look at my summary screen, I can kind of get a high level overview of what my students have been doing, what they got right, what they got wrong, what requires a little bit more of an interaction from my end, right? So for example, here, I can see in challenge 5, I had a couple of students that might have gotten it incorrect. So one of the things that I can do, right, is I can go specifically to those students, right? I can take a look at what they are doing, what their work is, and without causing any disruption to the flow of the lesson or to what one of the students are doing, I can easily kind of provide them a little bit of feedback to Roberto there. Perhaps maybe, prompting him to, hey, can you, use the sketch screen here to show your thinking, right? Whatever it may be, but something that I'm already kind of giving them that feedback based on what my students are doing, right? That's the beauty of the teacher dashboard is being able to, again, really enhance what I'm doing in the classroom. So that's one of the ways. The other way too is if we actually jump into, again, more from a teacher view here, and you take a look here at this lesson here. Here's the Fruit Labs. Let me go ahead and zoom in here a little bit more. So a couple of things we already talked about. Again, I've got all those different embedded moves in there within the lesson itself to provide that support for students. But one of the things that I really love about our program, and I wish I had this whenever I was teaching in the classroom with this, is I have this differentiation beyond the lesson, right? So we get to the end of the lesson. What's next, right? Lesson's great. It's amazing. It's engaging. But what do I do for students that don't get it? What do I do for students that maybe need a little bit more practice? Or what do I do for students that need to be challenged a little bit more? We want to structure that. We want to provide that support for teachers and for students. And so whenever teachers go into the differentiation beyond the lesson tab, we script that out for them, right? We break it down into support, strengthening, and stretch, right? So for those students that perhaps need a little bit more support, right? They didn't quite get the concept of this particular lesson, right? What are some things that you can do, whether that's specifically to revisiting specific places within the lesson, in previous lessons, or as Lauren had mentioned, right? I can really leverage these mini lessons as well, which are these short 15-minute print-based lessons where that's more going to be your traditional modeled review there, where you have that modeled review, you have that guided practice, right? That more that I do, we do, and then finally that you do in there as well. But what I really love about this document here is that this is really user-friendly, right? This can be a learner to teacher collaboration, right? Where I'm sitting there in that tier 2, tier 3 intervention, or it can be a paraprofessional that can leverage this, right? Or it can be something I can take home for the parents to use, and they want to provide a little bit more support. Because as we see here on the left-hand side, we kind of script it out, right? What are some of the things that you can ask, right, to prompt student thinking, as Lauren mentioned earlier? I love that. What are some supports that you can do? What are some sentence stems, right, to encourage that left language development there? And even what are some key takeaways? And even at the end of it all, right, what's next? What do I do for students that got it? What are the students that perhaps need a little bit more support in there? So the fact that we have all of that built in there, not only that, but even the opportunity for students to have more of that traditional learner to software interaction with our Boost personalized learning that's going to adapt and adjust to the needs of the different students there. So again, we really want to try to empower not just the teachers, but also our students to really celebrate and highlight their thinking.
Thank you. Dr. Wendy, what are effective ways to shift teaching practices to facilitate discovery and collaboration?
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for the invitation, Lasana. Hi, everybody. I am Wendy Williams from New Visions for Public Schools, and I am one of a number of coaches providing job embedded supports for our teachers who are endeavoring to implement IM curriculum through the New York City Solves project. We actually are in our 5th year of supporting teachers with implementing this curriculum. And we're also in year 2 with supporting and coaching our lovely educators in the New York City Solves program. One of the things that I will say about this And let's see if my screen is advancing. Does everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, the slide's stuck?
What I'm seeing is immersive curriculum-based professional learning, Wendy. So I'm not sure if you're meant to be on another slide.
Yeah. So it is not advancing for me. There we go. Uh, I want to talk a little bit about what we've learned over the course of the 5 years that we've been doing this. And in answering the question, actually, one of the things that we've noticed is that in order to help teachers shift their practice, I know Lauren and Katie spoke to this. There is this idea of time that even they need to grapple with the changes in the philosophical and pedagogical approaches in order to facilitate both discovery and collaboration for students. In fact, our teachers were finding need time to do discovery and collaboration as well. We have provided, especially in the early portion of our partnerships with our schools, in-depth professional learning that we know needs to happen over time, and that gives teachers opportunities to really do the math themselves, to explore the structures and the strategies that are embedded within the curriculum. Um, they need to internalize their sense making and figure out what it is that is difficult and what isn't difficult about getting the concepts across. And doing that with their peers is something that we found is really important. And as job embedded coaches, what we hope to also develop is this collegial relationship where the teachers know that we are there to support them. We're there as partners, not people who are coming in to um, point the finger of blame, because we really want this to work both for our teachers and for the students that we serve. And one of the other things that I think we try to do is to make sure that when the professional development is provided, that it is done with timing so that they're getting the just-in-time information and opportunities to explore what it is that they're going to do and planning forward so that they're ready when the pacing of the units happens in their school. So, and I think one of the important shifts that we've been able to make, especially in the last year and a half, is to draw on the expertise of the teachers themselves, where they're seeing more of a sort of a PLC approach where they're working together to support each other as they're trying to improve their practice. Um, I think of it as something that's sort of related to teacher action research, where they're focusing on the pieces that they know that they need to improve, but it's not that they know they need to improve it because somebody is coming to tell them that. It's because they're actually doing doing inquiry that is important to them and making sure that they're um, working on things that, or for I guess another way to say it is that they're interrogating their own practice so that they're working on things that they know are going to help them to implement the curriculum more successfully and to provide opportunities for their students to be more successful. And in that manner, what we've been doing are lab classrooms and intervisitations where peers are seeing each other uh, deal with the day-to-day integration and implementation of the IM curriculum. And so there's less of the sitting in at a PL session all day only. They're actually having opportunities to observe their peers, to grapple with any issues, and then to do some deep reflections and planning, and then to play around with and actually implement doing specific lessons or activities within segments of lessons with live students so that they can go back to their schools and dig a little deeper into whatever the issues that they're feeling they're having with the implementation of the curriculum. And again, we have dedicated job embedded support to help teachers to transfer all of that they are learning in their professional learning sessions, whether that be the formal presentations or if they're doing intervisitations and diving deeply into the inquiry. Um, we also know that this is something that works well because we're grounding it in current research. One of the things that I want to point out here is that we know when teachers are trying to adjust their practice or change their pedagogy, it takes lots and lots of times for them to actually see it in action, to change their paradigm enough, and so that they'll want to actually implement and continue to um, build on what they're learning, and that they also need significant support in trying to implement that. And I think that's one of the important reasons that we as coaches work in a job embedded manner as partners. Another thing that is important, I think, comes from Deborah Ball's research, where we want teachers, they're not primed to watch each other because they're looking for the perfect lesson. It's because as we work together, one of the things that helps them to move and change their pedagogy is to have some deep engagement with seeing in live form what what these instances of instruction look like when it goes well, when it doesn't go well, and the improvement comes when they're actually deeply studying how how things play out with students. It isn't so much that they need to only see things when they go well, because that's where we get the currency to start to question what we're doing and to figure out ways to do it better. And another thing that we pay attention to is that we make sure that what we're doing in professional learning is actually curriculum based. And we know that when we're building their skills using the materials and the teachers are having these experiences where which may be very different from the way that they initially were were taught to teach in their teacher preparation programs or even their experiences when they were in school. We know that to have those shifts happen, they need those shifts, the professional learning and opportunities for teachers to work together have to be grounded in the content and the structures that they're actually trying to implement within the curriculum.
Thank you, Dr. Wendy. We're coming up on time now. So if there are any questions that educators among that's still among us, if you have any questions for our panelists, we'll take a couple questions before we get ready to close out. You can drop the questions in the chat, or you can come off mute and verbalize the question. My teacher wait time is kicking in from a few years ago, muscle memory. I know there's been a lot of things said and there's a lot of food for thought. But while we have them here, any burning questions? All right. Well, we'll go to our next section and I'll pass it over to Abdullah.
Hey everyone. I'm Abdullah. I'm an organizer with the Free New York team. thank everybody for taking the time to come here and engage after like a long day of teaching. Really appreciate everybody's participation. We really think that getting this type of feedback is super important. So in that same interest, we would like people to take a moment to try to fill out this math survey because we're trying to collect feedback for the purposes of writing a report on the math curriculum to present to NYCPS. So take a moment and please follow the QR code, or again, we just dropped links again, the same one that Sarah dropped earlier. Please make sure that for the purposes of our data that you do fill out everything in that survey. That is very important. So please do not skip anything. And we, again, really appreciate your feedback.
Awesome. Janine.
Hi, everyone. I'm Janine Morgan. I'm the Chief of Staff here at E4E New York. And I just wanted to quickly share about a powerful film that was recently released. It's a great way to continue the conversation that we're having here tonight. Counted Out investigates the biggest crises of our time through an unexpected lens of math. In our current information economy, math is everywhere. The people we date, the news we see, the influence of our votes, the candidates who win elections, the education we have access to, the jobs we get, all of it is underwritten by an invisible layer of math that few of us understand or even notice. But whether we know it or not, our numeric literacy, whether we can speak the language of math, it is a critical determinant of our social and economic power. Through a mosaic of personal stories, expert interviews, and scenes of math transformation in action, Counted Out shows what's at risk if we keep up the status quo. Do we want an America in which most of us don't consider ourselves math people, where math proficiency goes down as students grow up? Or do we want a country where everyone can understand the math that undergirds our society? And can we help shape it? There's a few ways to see this film. You can actually visit the countedoutfilm.com website, which I've put in the chat, and they actually list upcoming screenings. I did want to highlight there is one on March 27th at the National Museum of Mathematics in New York City. And what makes that one special is they actually have the filmmaker and film participants coming to the screening. So if you want to meet those people and have those conversations, you can. And they're also looking for people to host screenings of their own, which you can also request on their website. So we're happy to give you more information. If you're interested, you could always reach out to me. But yeah, I'm going to pass it off to Lasana to close us out.
Thank you, Janine. Yes, on behalf of our team at Educators for Excellence New York, we would just like to thank you so much for taking the time this evening to share your wisdom, knowledge. This is being recorded, so although our audience may have been smaller, there is a larger audience outside of this that we will be accessing with this very pertinent and important information. So once again, our partners, PL providers, curriculum providers, as well as our teachers, our educators, thank you so much for taking the time to share with us. And everyone, please have an excellent